1917 is directed by Sam Mendes and takes place during the events of World War I. And in the film we follow two British soldiers who are tasked with the mission of delivering a message to a military regiment that they have to get to by crossing enemy lines. And basically they just have to get the colonel to call off an enemy attack, which will result in the saving of 1,600 men. If you happen to watch my Best of 2019 video from back in December, you'll remember that this was one of those films that I wasn't able to catch before I made that list. I really wanted to, but it just wasn't playing in my area until like mid-January, and that's when I saw it. But since I have seen the movie twice now, and since we're dealing with everything that's going on right now, I thought this would be a really good time to talk about some films that I missed from 2019, and this is one of them. And out of anything I could have talked about on my channel today, I thought this would be the most fitting, given that it's Memorial Day, and what better movie to talk about than the last big war movie that came out in theaters? Right off the bat, I'm just going to get this out of the way. Roger Deakins is the star of this film. He's probably one of the best cinematographers out there right now. He's shot some of the best looking films of the past decade, like Skyfall and Blade Runner 2049. And this probably is up there as one of his best. It's a gorgeous looking movie. And you probably already know by now that this movie was designed to look like it was all shot in one take. We've seen this kind of technique used before in Birdman, but that was really a smaller indie kind of film, so we've never really seen this technique utilized with something huge and enormous like a war movie. And they really pulled it off here. The camera work on display here is absolutely masterful. I don't even know how you construct something like this, because there's so many scenes where so many things are happening all at one time and the camera's not able to cut, so they have to move really quickly back and forth between all these things. But Roger Deakins is able to capture it all so well. And it really works for this movie's storytelling, because it really makes you feel like you're there and that you're actually going on this journey with these two soldiers. And honestly, I think this is one of the most immersive war movies I've ever seen. And there's multiple reasons for that. One being the camera work, which I already mentioned, but also the production design in this movie is insane. Everything is just so detailed, and when you see these two men cross from one place to the next, there's barbed wire on the ground and these dilapidated buildings and these ruins of cities that have been ravaged by war, and some of the time they have to spend hunkered down in these trenches that look exactly like they did in World War I, and they also have to crawl through this dirt and mud, and there's just dead bodies lying everywhere. So you constantly feel that there's a war happening, and everything is just so period accurate. And so it really adds to that sense of immersion. There's also this really great sense of urgency that the movie has with these characters that never really leaves, because you're constantly reminded of how important it is that these people get this message to the military regiment, because if they don't succeed, then 1,600 people are going to die. And you constantly feel the stakes and the weight of what they're doing. And part of the reason that's so effective is because of the two main actors. Dean Charles Chapman and George Mackay in particular are really great in this film. For a lot of the film, they give very subdued performances, and you never really feel like they're going for this big, huge acting moment. But there's some scenes that require a lot of dramatic acting from both of them, and they really pull it off, and you do feel the connection that they make throughout the course of this movie. I've always loved in war movies where you have those scenes where some of the characters just kind of let everything out, and you can kind of see how the war is impacting them from a psychological standpoint. It just makes the experience feel a little bit more real and grounded, and you definitely do get that in some moments in this film. And another thing I love about this movie is that it never really slows down. You constantly feel the sense of urgency and the weight of what these characters are trying to do and how important it is that they get this message to the military regiment. And there's so many sequences where it feels like they're just barely surviving just to make it to the next point. Like there's this one scene where they go underground and there's all these tripwires everywhere and they have to get around them, but then this rat comes and blows the whole thing up. There's another sequence where one character is trying to get across a bridge, but there's a sniper in the distance and he has to kind of hide behind cover in order to get across. There's so many moments like this that are just really well directed, and they have so much suspense, and it really adds to the experience in that way. And going back to how this movie looks, the lighting in some of these scenes is absolutely incredible. There's this one where George Mackay's character is running through like the ruins of this abandoned village, and there's some fire in the distance that creates this huge orange light surrounding everything, and it just looks so beautiful. Again, with this cinematography, Roger Deakins has created one of his best looking films. Overall, this is just a really immersive and exciting war movie. One of the best that I've probably seen in the theater. However, I do have one big issue with it, and that lies in the characterization. Beyond one or two scenes towards the beginning of the movie with the two main soldiers, you don't really get to know these characters that well throughout the course of the film. And I just feel like I could have cared about them a little bit more to get a little bit more invested in what was going on. At the same time though, I recognize that this movie is going for that immersion factor and that it really just wants to make you feel like you're actually there. and that you're experiencing this journey with these two soldiers. So it makes sense that there's not like a lot of scenes where they just sit down and, you know, talk about their lives and get to know each other, because it's a war that doesn't really happen a lot. However, this is a movie, and I like having somewhat of an emotional attachment to the characters that we follow. It kind of does the same thing that Dunkirk did, and in a lot of ways, this movie is a little bit similar to Dunkirk, but they both kind of just want you to feel like you're actually in the war and that you're really immersed in this experience, and so they don't really spend a lot of time with the characters. And that makes sense, but at the end of the day, I feel like if I had just a little bit more of an emotional attachment to these characters, and that kind of would have elevated this movie beyond the great experience that it already is. But still, you have to hand it to Roger Deakins and Sam Mendes for crafting a war movie that looks like it's all shot in one take, never really been done before, and the fact that they pulled it off as well as they did is pretty damn amazing. Because they did that so extremely well, I can kind of forgive them a little bit on the lack of characterization. Overall, this is a great movie, one of the best that I saw last year. On a technical level, it's a masterpiece, it has really good performances. From a narrative perspective, the story was really compelling and I was pretty much riveted from start to finish. And as a whole, this is one of the most immersive and powerful war movies that I've ever seen. If you didn't see it last year, I definitely do recommend that you check it out. I'm going to give 1917 a 9 out of 10. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. I'm so glad I finally got to talk about this movie. And also, happy Memorial Day. I really hope you guys are all staying safe and staying healthy during this crazy time. You can look forward to more reviews very soon. I'm going to have another video up sometime at the end of this week, probably on Friday, so you can look forward to that. Also, be sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.